In this example, we're going to go and talk about the inverse tan function. One thing that you want to remember, let's pull this up a little bit, is that the tangent of x is equal to the sine of x over the cosine of x, or y divided by x. So when you take into account trying to figure out what the values are for square root of 3 and 0, remember those numbers are coming from dividing two things together. So if we have the tan inverse of square root of 3, that's got to come from a triangle that has a square root of 3 in it, which means it's coming from our 30, 60, 90 triangle. But we don't necessarily know which one. So if you don't know which one, then we can go ahead and look at both of them. So we're going to set up our triangles in two different ones. So we have two options here. First of all, if our tangent is positive, we know that we cannot be in the second or the third quadrant. And if it's positive, that means it's got to be in the first. So we're going to draw our triangle in the first quadrant. And here comes our two options. We know it's a 30, 60, 90 triangle, but we don't know if the 30 degrees goes here and the 60 degrees go here, or if the 60 degrees goes inside and the 30 degrees goes outside. It's one of these two options. Now, here's what's going to happen with these two options. In the first one, since the 30 degrees is inside, that makes the sine 1/2. And it makes the cosine, let's fix that too. And it makes the cosine value the square root of 3 over 2. And if we're dealing with this triangle, the sine value is the square root of 3 over 2. And the cosine value, which is across from the 30-degree angle, is 1/2. Now remember, our tangent is our sine divided by our cosine. So in the first triangle, we would take 1/2, which is our sine function, and divide that by our cosine function, which is square root of 3 over 2. Or you can think of it as y divided by x. And that means we get 1/2 times the reciprocal, which is 2 over the square root of 3, giving us 1 over the square root of 3, and that rationalized would be the square root of 3 over 3. In our other case, we would take the square root of 3 over 2 and divide it by 1/2. So we're doing the opposite of what we did here. And that means we would take the square root of 3 over 2 times 2. Cancel that out, and we'd get the square root of 3. So this is the answer we want. We want which one is giving us a square root of 3. So we can say this one is not our option. This is the option we want. And if that's the option we want, and we look at the angle that's inside, it's a 60-degree angle, which is the same in radians as pi over 3. So we can say our answer here is pi over 3. Let's do one more together, which is letter B. And in letter B, we have the arctan of 0. So we need to figure out where that's at. So remember, with our tangent function, we can't be in the third or the fourth quadrant. And remember, pi over 2 and negative pi over 2 are not an option either. So to get 0, we have to be on one of our axes, and the only option we have is right here. So let's check to make sure that that works. So this is our point 1, 0. And if we take the sine, which is our y value, divide it by our x, we would be taking 0 and dividing it by 1, which does give us 0. So the angle that we have, and this is where it gets kind of confusing, this 0 and the angle 0 are two different things. But our angle that we have rotated is just 0 radians. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, let's move to the try this. So go ahead and try these out. Pause it now, unpause it when you're ready to check your answer. If you did letter A correctly, you'd get negative pi over 6. And if you did B correctly, you should get negative pi over 4. If you have questions, please let me know.